This Friday marks the 187th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence of New Zealand, the precursor to the Treaty of Waitangi that was signed 5 years later in 1840. The agreement, known by Māori as He Whakaputanga o Te Rangatiratanga or Nu Tereni, is set to finally be taught in schools. It's a huge step, given that few New Zealanders, Pākehā or Māori, still understand the significance of the Declaration to this country. The following is the first episode in our series Te Aho, that this week looks at important events affecting New Zealand's past, present and future. This Friday marks the 187th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence of New Zealand at Waitangi, the precursor to the Treaty of Waitangi that was signed 5 years later in 1840. The agreement, known by Māori as He Whakaputanga or Te Rangatiratanga or Te Tereni, is set to finally be taught in schools. It's a huge step, given that few New Zealanders, Pākehā or Māori, still have little understanding of what the Declaration is. The following gives us a look at the first episode, Te Aho.
Growing up in Te Taitokero as a descendant of Ngāpuhi, I was taught from a young age that both He Whakaputanga and Te Tiriti o Waitangi are tapu. They're sacrosanct. They are the documents that our ancestors put the ngu of their ihu onto those documents, which makes them taonga.
He Whakaputanga was signed on the 28th of October 1835, and it's a declaration of independence, basically. It's an unambiguous statement about the independence of Aotearoa at that time, and this comes 112 years before New Zealand signed the Statute of Westminster in 1947, which is usually taken as the date of independence from Britain, but here we have a statement in 1835 that's declaring that New Zealand is a whenua rangatira, an independent land governed by rangatira and their communities.
We've always been clear, and certainly Te Taitokero and Ngāpuhi, and I know other tribes whose ancestors who signed Te Whakaputanga are quite clear. It's our first statement of mana motu hake in a geopolitical sense, in a time where geopolitical competition was huge. French, British, American settling around the world. It was a clear mark by those chiefs who signed it.
52 rangatira signed between 1835 and 1839, most from Taitokera, but of course Te Hapuku from Hawke's Bay also signed, and Te Wherewhere, the great Tainui rangatira who went on to become the first Māori king. So it's a very important document in that sense, and a declaration of those rangatira, declaring their mana, their independence.
Ngāpuhi produced evidence to the Waitangi Tribunal that in 1835 our ancestors didn't cede their sovereignty, in fact quite the opposite.
He Whakaputanga was never revoked, and I think it comes back to the findings of the Waitangi Tribunal that Māori did not cede sovereignty under Te Tiriti in 1840, and so those rights that were affirmed and declared in 1835 through He Whakaputanga live on, really. After 1840, the Crown comes to assume sovereignty regardless of whether that's been ceded, and He Whakaputanga is sidelined. It's, for many Pākehā, it comes to be seen as a kind of historical curiosity.
We should all be proud as descendants of those ancestors who made a stand, and in recognising their mana motu hake, it's now our responsibility to continue the recognition of our tupuna, regardless of who it was, the role that they played then, and what does that mean for us now.
We're at a point in our nation's history where we're beginning to realise that we need to have those conversations about our future constitutional arrangements and what this country might look like in future. And we can do that partly by looking backwards, and He Whakaputanga is an important part of that process.
As a descendant of Te Ruki and Te Kēmara who signed Te Whakaputanga, it's our job to make sure we have a strong narrative locally. It's also our job to protect the taonga. So other ways it can be supported, history in schools, an announcement by the government is an important one. But it's important that we tell the right history. And so it comes back to making sure whānau, hapu and iwi have the story to tell and are prepared to share it with our history curriculum in this country. Then there's another part which, as a descendant of Ngāpuhi and a descendant of people who have fought hard for the recognition of our sovereignty and our treaty rights, we've got a job to make sure that we continue to remind whoever is in power and government of why He Whakaputanga is important in our Treaty of Waitangi settlement process, whatever that might look like.